I've never seen a diamond in the flesh. I cut my teeth on wedding rings.
Dude, that's pretty cool.
Man, that is a sad clown.
Dude, that's pretty good.
This is The Gloom, bringing you weekly interviews with F3 Omaha packs, exploring their F3 experiences and finding those sticky elements that create the glue in the gloom.
Man, you look so official.
Wow. Look at this guy. I feel like I'm in a commercial right now.
That's right.
We are honored to have the man, the myth, the legend, Safe Ride, in the building, the virtual building here on the Gloom. So we've got Pony Express. This is the Plague, and we have our man, Safe Ride. And I think what we'll do is just kind of lean in and get to know the man who is Safe Ride. Get to know maybe a little bit behind the legend, and try to just understand who he is and what makes him tick. So I think to start, one of the things we're trying to get to know everybody. So just tell us a little bit about who EH'd you, maybe some memories from that first workout, and what's behind that name. Why Safe Ride? Because you're not a good driver. So what's
Well, I'll start it out. Josh Amber, 39, Safe Ride. My first post was back on April 6, 2019, out at the original Oracle out of Boys Town. My man Brazilian, with a little help from Folsom, had been EHing me for a good 6-7 months. And the day before, so on that Friday the 5th, I got a text from Brazilian, and it was plain and simple to the point. It said, 7 a.m., Boys Town, show up, bring gloves. And for whatever reason, I decided to cave in finally. And I think I actually went to Ace Hardware that afternoon or evening and bought a pair of Ace like gardening gloves and threw them in my trunk and sent him a photo and said it's the closest I've been to showing up. And yeah, so that was kind of the origination. As far as the first post went, I was pretty close to spilling Merlot from the outset. I likened myself to thinking that I was in fairly decent shape, but clearly I had let the wheels fall off in the months and years before my first post. And so when I showed up, Reba was on the queue, and it was actually Reba's VQ, and it's my understanding that it's been his only queue that he's ever done. And so he had this crazy workout on, if you remember, out of Boys Town, they kind of had that practice football field up there. And so he had cinder blocks, and he had coupons up there, and we're supposed to do down and backs. For each of my 1 year and my 2 year anniversaries, my 1 year, obviously, we were technically shut down because of COVID. So I did kind of the OYO, but not alone, virtual workout. And then Polaroid and I, out at the Colosseum a couple weeks back, did kind of a take on Reba's beatdown. And so we were running down and back, one time to up to 7. And as you're doing that, you're doing 3 or 4 exercises and working your way down. But it was brutal. It was god awful. I know I've saved the original backblast that Reba did. So I know who posted. I got the saved Name-A-Rama video, but he did these things. I still cannot remember exactly what they were because they're not in the lexicon. But he had these things called wobbly bananas and killer rabbits. To this day,
I remember that.
I have no recollection what it is, though. So if you remember, Plague, by all means, tell me what they were, because I have no recollection. It was kind of a blur for most of the workout.
Yeah, I feel like there was one where it was like a like a jump up and a spin around type of thing. It was like some, but I'm with you. They're the wobbling bananas or whatever they were called. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So
yeah, hey, if Reba's listening out there on the airwaves, let's get you back on the Q schedule, brother, because we want to know. The packs want to know what are those exercises.
Yeah, it's only been 2 years. Might as well. I think it's about due for another Reba beatdown. When I showed up, I actually ended up knowing quite a few guys. I think. Let's see, Saul was there, and so I've known him since law school. But anyway, so I went in, I told myself, tell the guys my story. I'm born and raised here in Omaha. I'm a big sports fan. I got 3 kids. I'm a lawyer, and I think I'm only one of 2 or 3 lawyers in F3 Omaha, even till today. I'm joking there, obviously.
For the firm.
Exactly. Yeah, I think I'm one of 2 or 3 from Hobbit O'Brien. But anyway, so I tell them, hey, I'm a lawyer. I do personal injury work. I'm at Hobbit O'Brien. And Saul, I think, was the first guy that threw out just like ambulance chaser, which, kind of made me cringe a little bit. I'm like, just don't name me that. But then it kind of, it was spitballing from there. My firm, obviously we do 100% personal injury stuff. And one of the things that we do kind of as a marketing tool, but really to give back to the community, is this, what's referred to as the Safe Ride Home program. It's done every holiday season and a couple other times and during events throughout the year. But what essentially it is that we basically give free cab rides home to people who may have had a little too much to drink, to try and minimize or prevent drunk driving and the ramifications from that. So my firm does the Safe Ride Home program. Somebody threw out Safe Ride, and then it just stuck. Reba stuck with it, and that is the origination of the safest of rides, and how that moniker came to be. Now, and at the time I was like, oh, all right, that sounds pretty good. But I absolutely love my name. It's fitting.
Now, have you actually had to use that program yourself?
Well, since I'm born and raised here in Omaha, I definitely used it before I ever joined this firm, mostly while I was in college, sprinkled it a little bit throughout law school. But Lucky Charms did a fundraiser about 1.5 years ago out at Cross-Train. And my firm actually helped them, and it was one of the sponsors for that. So I went out there with my M, and we had a good time, drank a few IPAs out at Cross-Train, and I for sure used the Safe Ride from the firm.
I think Yamber Alert was the other one we were trying to throw out. There were some other good names out there. But Safe Ride is definitely, it fits, right? Because you have such a big heart. And you're not about chasing the ambulance. You're about caring for the community member, so it fits so well with you. So looking back, all this time in F3, you've done a lot. I think you've been involved in rucking, even though you refuse to admit you're a runner. We all know you're historically you're a cross country star. So, you've got that in your back pocket. You've led some brutal beatdowns, but if you had to pick, what's that one kind of highlight moment or just a moment that sticks out as memorable to you?
Well, I know early on, I kind of jumped in with both feet. Originally, when I had my first post, I think the next couple of days afterwards, I couldn't walk up and down the stairs at my office. But then I thought to myself, okay, well, if I did maybe Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and that quickly turned into, Folsom wanted me to go to heavy metal on Wednesdays, and then, the woodshed is right down the street on Fridays. And so it quickly spiraled out of control where I was doing 5-6 days a week. So I kind of jumped in with both feet and quickly realized that this was a thing in my life that had been missing. So I was fully invested in that. I think within the first couple of weeks, I had read Free to Lead. The 1-year anniversary happened just a few weeks after I joined. So I definitely leaned in right away. And I think a couple of the guys, Wait Time, probably you played, Tater Tot, had realized that. And so they approached me fairly early on about the possibility of becoming a Site-Q. And there was some expansion happening at that time. And that's where the origination of the Colosseum happened. I met Wait Time and Brazilian and maybe a couple other guys out at Paradise for lunch. And we talked about starting a new AO. And so I think my first, outside of CSOP and which was the Bowl in May and the 1-year anniversary activities, you know, my first real kind of benchmark moment was when I got that shovel flag as the Site-Q for Colosseum, and it was a memorable moment. I'm sure that if I pulled up my computer now, I save all my backlash so I could go through and look at exactly what that was. I recall that there was some red zone stuff of going to the 20 and the 10, the 5, and touchdowns, so to speak. But that was one of the benchmark moments for me. But I've had several of them throughout my time with F3, whether it's some CSOPs that we've done. I know we've done a lot of extra stuff outside of F3, which is, you know, Crab Cakes being so kind of doing family stuff at Vala's, and, you know, just those second F opportunities that we've had, the third F opportunities that we've had. It's tough to pinpoint, you know, each and every moment, but the first one that sticks out to me is when I was officially named and we started that new AO at the Colosseum.
Yeah, and that was the start. That was like the first, like you started that, right? It wasn't, you know, necessarily just a shovel flag pass. You know, I think that's pretty cool. I think, you know, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you had I want to circle back just a little bit, you know, and earlier on in your introduction, talking about some moments that you were going through the pandemic, you kind of mentioned on your own, but not alone, which actually hasn't been mentioned yet. Out of all the guests that we've had so far, we haven't really talked about that piece. So it really kind of raises a question for me is, how do you think, I mean, obviously the pandemic has affected us. How do you think we adapted? Are you hopeful that we're kind of seeing the tail end of it? And what do you think that kind of looks like for us moving forward? Sure.
Well, I mean, I remember doing some pre-rucks and things as COVID had, you know, the first case had been announced in the United States, and then it was in 15 states, and New York was starting to increase. And I was out on a pre-ruck either before Cornhusker or Heavy, and it was Othello and a couple other guys, and Othello was concerned, and he was like, hey, is this going to be a problem? And I was drinking the Kool-Aid with a lot of people of, no, this is going to blow over. Give it 6 weeks. We're fine. And then as we obviously know, it didn't go away, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And there was a lot of chatter behind the scenes. I know Plague was part of it, and a few other guys. And it was kind of like, what are we going to do? And finally, when we got to that time frame of we're going to shutter our doors to F3, I was at a loss. I truly was. I was depressed. I was so concerned that this was going to derail everything that I had been doing, both from a fitness standpoint and the fellowship and just all of the aspects of F3 that you get. I thought that was just going to vanish and go away. And what I quickly realized was, nope, it's just we're going to adapt and we're going to pivot and we're going to make this work. But with that OIO, but not alone, that Slack channel was vital to keeping guys engaged and, making sure that we're staying connected in some fashion. And whether it was that, the Slack channel on Twitter, there was just a lot of things that guys were trying to do to stay connected. And even though that the vast majority of us were meeting virtually, and that's kind of been the norm since March of 2020. It's definitely assisted in not losing the momentum that we had at the time. And you've seen kind of what happened when we came officially out of that 50-day window where we weren't doing official F3 stuff. We had a quick starfish expansion. I think we did 5 new AOs the end of the summer into fall of 2020. And then by the end of next week here, we're going to have 6 new spots. So you've just seen what that virtual OYO but not alone was able to accomplish, which was keeping that glue together. And then it's just, boom, accelerated as soon as we got out of that. We've gotten official again. And hopefully by the late summer, early fall, we got another round. Tater Tot may not want to hear that, but I think it's inevitable. And that's just a testament to the guys staying engaged throughout this really challenging year that we've had, and made it work.
Absolutely. And I think as we continue to starfish, I think you're right. I mean, it's going to keep going. And, the pandemic in particular was just, it was hard for a lot of guys. So I love that you dove in and, shield locked with some guys to get through that. I think that's really crucial, especially during a time like that, right? Unexpected things. And only thing we know for sure is there will be something else that we didn't expect to happen in the future. So I love that. Creating that sustainable, relationships. It's interesting because you think about Free to Lead and it talks about the sifter, and so like those guys did not fall through the sifter of, whatever was going on in the world at that time, right? There was no, like they stuck in there, and those are the guys that you latched onto, which is really, really cool to have those relationships. Talk us through a little bit, as we're looking at, so we've got F3, right? Fitness, Fellowship, and Faith is the name of the group. We've got Free to Lead. We've got the Q source. Talk us through kind of like where you see yourself at in the different Fs, and maybe how some of that, if it's Q source or maybe other book studies or things like of that nature that have helped you kind of move along that continuum and accelerate in each area. Where do you see yourself at today?
Well, I just finished my first round of Queen service a couple weeks ago, and when I started,
are you down to like 120 now?
Not that low, but I got a little.
Look good, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that. No, but I was always a fairly rail thin kind of guy, but over the years it was just I'd add 2 or 3 pounds a year. And it was just, well, that's just normal. I'm 34, 35 years old. I got 3 kids. Just, that's the way I anticipate or expected that my life would go. And I could go out and run a couple miles. It was pretty brutal to do, but I could, muster my way through it before F3. And, when I look back at where I was and where I am now, when I finished this Queen service, I was officially 38 pounds lighter than where I was at immediately prior to starting F3. When I did my first CSOP, which was the bull, and that craziness of starting down at Future and working all our way out to Paradise, it was like the farthest I had run in at minimum of a decade, if not longer, I'm sure. And I struggled my way through it. And now I feel like outside of some ailments that I've had with some injuries, I can get up and run a 5 or 10K and it's not an issue. I am in better shape today than I was probably even at the end of my college tenure. So my fitness is, F3 has brought that to the forefront. And Now, at times my M may say I take it a little too serious. I'm obsessed. and that's true. I think we all kind of deal with that. Clay, I know you have, of trying to find that balance of, hey, I got to go to bed at 9 because I got that pre-run at 4:30 with the guys. And the wife looking at you and saying, oh, okay, so we're not watching this show tonight. We're not going to watch, Breaking Bad or whatever it is. So you got to find that balance. And I've worked on that a little bit. I need to continue to do so to a certain extent. But, my fitness, I'm ecstatic about where I am and potentially where I'm going. I mean, my goal this year has been to run a half marathon. That's been hampered down a little bit because of an IT band I've had to work with for the last couple of months, but I've gotten to the point where I'm back to running now. And I think hopefully over the next, few months, I can get to that point. With the second F stuff, it's through the roof. I mean, just, you got that kind of inner circle of guys that you, and I'm sure everybody in F3 can kind of relate to. You got that kind of core group that you communicate with and you text, and you might have a separate Slack channel or Signal channel or text chain that you're working on, that you stay connected with those guys. But it's also just those random things. I mean, yesterday, for instance, I just got a random text message from Sparty. And Sparty, he just said, hey man, hope you're having a great day. And it's that kind of stuff where it's like, man, I got such a huge net of friends and confidants and guys that you can just lean on. And it doesn't have to be, man, I'm having a really shitty day of work and clients are bugging me, or, my kid is struggling in school. We all are dealing with that stuff, but just reaching out to a guy, hey, how's it going? Or, sitting down at a cafeteria and connecting with guys and learning their story is just, it fills your bucket. And there's no doubt about it. And that third F component, before F3, that was pretty much non-existent. My third F component was taking care of my family. And that was about it. I didn't attend church services. I didn't do any type of, volunteer activities, nothing. Now it's every 8 weeks I'm donating blood. This week when we're doing our 3-year anniversary convergence, I ran up to the food bank the other day and grabbed 30 boxes and guaranteed the folks at the food bank that we'd be back Saturday morning and those 30 boxes would be filled, and push guys to hopefully do that. So just be cognizant now that I've been in F3, for more than 2 years, of the world and my community is bigger than what's right in front of my face. And there are people and companies and entities that need help. And I am fortunate enough that I'm in a position where I can help people, not only, my business that I do, but, when you're in F3, you see that you have the resources, hopefully, to lend a hand to people that need it. And I've realized that I can do that and I should do that. And what you kind of realize, and it may be a little selfish on my part, but what I've realized is that I get a benefit out of donating my time or donating blood or donating items or volunteering places, right? And I think we all kind of see that. It's like I hate to say it, there's really no selfless act, because I feel fulfilled by doing those type of service activities, right? And I think that's the great part of the third F component. You're like, oh, well, you're volunteering or you're donating. Well, yes, I am doing that, but I am getting something back in return. I'm filling my bucket even more. And I'm sure that if there are any guys that listen to this or are listening to it, and I'm sure, Pony and Plague, you guys can agree that you feel that sense of pride and joy when you do that third F activity.
That's awesome, man.
Well said.
Love to hear that, you're accelerating in those three areas. And, F3 has given you the opportunity or this platform to kind of, one, see maybe what you may have been lacking and not even know. I think that's kind of the problem with a lot of the guys that are first coming in. Obviously the attraction is the first F. People are worried about their fitness. They're trying to jump in. They're trying to get a hold of their fitness and their life. And that's perfectly fine. But what they also, as you continue to come, you start to see in these second F opportunities or these third Fs where you're lacking, right? When I brought this up multiple times when I moved here, it was for the fitness aspect. I was proving a point. I needed to go there to prove a point to my buddy, Hong Kong. And, but then, come to realize I was really missing that second F component. And I needed some community. I had just moved here with my wife. We didn't really know a lot of guys. And like you were saying earlier, you've got so many guys that you can just lean on now that you're getting random texts from Sparty or slow pitch after a pre-run or something, just saying, hey, thanks for coming out. That's huge. So I definitely think that you're highlighting some aspects that a lot of the newer guys may not know about when they first start. Like, hey, I'm just worried about my fitness, but there are these other aspects that F3 can help highlight. Here's where you may not know you're missing something, but here, let me help fill your bucket, as you were kind of saying, right? Use this as a tool to fill your bucket with those things that you're missing. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah. And the one thing I would encourage any of the newer guys, it doesn't have to be, the F and G at his first post, but what really helped me in that second F component, Pony, is doing that extra thing. I know, time constraints will do this for folks and they can't always, stay afterwards, but man, sticking around for cafeteria doesn't have to be every day, but if you just are able to stick around a little bit afterwards rather than jumping in the car and heading home, and that's fine too. But if you get that cafeteria, I think that is such a vital component to accelerate your purpose into F3 and that second F opportunity, because you learn a heck of a lot more from guys. And I think it was, God, I've been working out with Hipster for like 4 months, and we were finally out at cafeteria at Starbucks one day after, I think, Future, and he's talking about, I think, finally mentioned Creighton Law School. And I was like, oh, you went to Creighton Law School? And he said, yeah. I go, are you a lawyer? And, it turns out he's, over at Erickson Cederstrom right across the way here. And it's like, man, I never knew that about you. And so you learn a lot about guys, and it is an opportunity where you're able to stay engaged, and it keeps you coming back.
No, I agree with that 100%. And I brought that up in mine. Cafeteria for me was something that was so huge in building those connections. I'm super appreciative that that's even a thing. And I know that's rare for some regions, right? I know we're one of the only ones that continuously gets cafeteria every day, and that's unique. And that's really cool. And that we have that avenue for the packs. You had kind of touched on continuing to come back. This is one of the things that kept you coming back. And, obviously that's, part of the glue of, F3. So I guess for me, my question to you is, what was the glue for you?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think I just realized, right after that first workout, that I just saw the connections that were made with guys, and they're razzing each other, or they're back when we could do ball of man, you get done and guys are, shaking hands and hugging each other. And it's just like, man, this is a brotherhood. It truly is. And I use brother all the time now. I mean, love you, brother, how's it going? All that stuff. I think you'll probably see that in most of my text messages as well. But that's what I realized right away, is that you're truly a member of a community, and you are a member of this brotherhood. And it was as soon as the end of that first workout, I looked around and I saw guys, and I'm like, this is something that I am missing in my life, and I need it, and I want it. And when I learned, and I've realized since being in F3, and I'm sure that guys listening to this will see it too if they're regular posters. It's like, if you get out of your routine, it screws up your day, right? It's like, I used to do the Murph every single Monday, and if I, fart sacked it, or if I had something going on where I didn't post on that Monday, it like ruined the start of my week. Now I've gotten a little better at that, but it's like, man, I miss being with the guys. I miss, having to do monkey humpers on at Creepy Corner at the woodshed. Things like that. It's just, at times you can't get enough of it. But, on the flip side of that, you do have to find a balance, and you do have to keep in mind that you have 2.0s and M's and responsibilities outside of F3. I'm going to kind of divert a little bit here on what you asked me, Pony, but what I've talked about in a recent COT was, we talk about these 3Fs here in F3 and how we accelerate in all 3 of those Fs in this group, but where I struggled with my second year of F3 was trying to implement those 3Fs outside of our group, right? With my Concentrica, with my family. And so I've tried to be more cognizant of that. Some days it's easier said than done, but the purpose of, and the mission statement of F3, right, is to plant, grow, and serve small workout groups through the reinvigoration of male community leadership. It's not male F3 leadership that we need to concentrate on. And so trying to keep that, in the forefront is sometimes difficult for me, but I realize that, and I know that I need to accelerate for my family and do those things outside of F3 to better my life and the people around me and their lives. Yeah.
And I love that you mentioned that because this kind of illustrates how, the Concentrica is really kind of like this thing that's comes out of Q Source, right? And it's in Free to Lead. They talk about it there too, but what you inevitably realize is that a way to get guys engaged with other men and build those relationships is through the 3Fs. But the way to prioritize the things in your life, right? Fitness is not on the Concentrica at all, and so it's interesting because for me, I think what sometimes the barrier for guys to engage in these other activities, like the reason I don't go to coffee is because I think I got to be the first one into work. Well, guess what? Your relationships that you're going to build at cafeteria are way more important than work. And that's hard for a lot of people to say and to admit. But to be honest, if something happens to you today and you're not here tomorrow, who's going to be at your funeral, right? Is it the people you work with, or is it all the friends and relationships that you built in the community? And for me, I've got to prioritize those relationships above my work, because it's really easy to get immediate feedback from work on how you're doing and how you're performing. But like 5 minutes at coffee with some other guys, building those relationships is really, really powerful, lifelong. I think, early on, it reminds me of that story. One of our leaders went through a time where he lost his job. And I remember thinking, why is he not crushed by that? Why is he not like in tears? And why, he's still coming out. He's not isolating. He doesn't even really seem to be upset. And lo and behold, it's because he had not put work at the center of his life. That was the reason, right? He realized that I am not my job. My work is not my identity. And I think that is hard for a lot of us men to deal with. But I appreciate you going deep with us on some of these things here. It's nice to get to know. I said at the beginning, man, this guy's got a really big heart underneath that 3-piece suit. So I do think, we want to kind of wrap up here. We got some questions that are a little more lighthearted, but first one is, what's your least favorite exercise?
I got a couple of them, but the one that sticks out to me is hydraulic squats. They serve absolutely no purpose. Okay, let's call a spade a spade. So, like burpees, I know you're a fan of them, Plague. I hate them, but they're beneficial in my opinion. There is literally no good reason for hydraulic squats. Let's be honest. And khakis, if you're listening to this, get it off your goddamn workout list, okay? Because all it does is just hurt my knees. Frankly, just regular squats are better than that. Like I get a more, I'll leave it at that. Hydros.
Yeah, we're gonna have to take an official tally because for some reason hydraulic squats are, a lot of guys are saying that that's their least favorite, which makes me really proud that I have at least influenced guys' feelings about burpees over the last couple of years. Guys like them now, which is good. That's been my master plan all along.
I don't like burpees, but I can see the purpose of burpees. There's no purpose for hydros. All right.
Fair enough.
Love it.
All right. Well, last question here is, you kind of briefly touched on it, maybe just with a little more specificity. What advice would you give an F and G?
Okay. The advice for the F and G, or the person who's first coming out, like even before the F and G at the site, right?
Right.
Post, right? And keep posting. And go to cafeteria. So it's a little, it's not one thing, it's a couple things. So first is post. Get out there and do a workout. And if you say it's too early or I'm out of shape or, we all heard the excuses. We've heard them all before. You can do it first and foremost. And when you get done with your first post, come back again. It doesn't have to necessarily be the following day. It could be a couple days down the road, like I was. I couldn't move the first couple days afterwards. But get back out there and post again. And then stay connected, just strike up a conversation. I know it's easier said than done, but like today when we were out at the launch of the Coop, a guy who's recently been showing up, and he's been regular, which is great, is Sportiva. And, I'm just running next to him. I say, hey, how's it going, Sportiva? And I think the last couple of days I had to remind him what my name was, but that's fine. Right. And it's just those little things of, connecting with a guy like Stinkbait, right? He's leaning heavy into this right now. And that's something that's going to keep him engaged, and guys are going to start recognizing him and communicating with him. And it's a way for you to get connected into F3. So posting is the biggest thing, and you can do this. And then the second is just come to a cafeteria and talk to some guys, and you're going to realize that even though you may be in completely different walks of life or different businesses, or that person may never see you again because they're a district person, or they're out west, or they may just be coming through like Whiplash did with Seattle, F3 Seattle when he came. But you're building those relationships, and it just you'll see that it's a reason for you to come back, because you're having good conversations and you're learning about other men that frankly you would never get the opportunity to do if it wasn't for F3. So get to a cafeteria. I'll buy you a coffee.
There you go. I love that. That's a good. We haven't had that offer yet. How much they paying you over there? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Love it, Say Brian. This has been just a pleasure to spend time with you this morning. I think to send us off, would you give us the old name-orama?
All right. Josh Amber, 39. Safe ride.
Safe ride.
Safe ride.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.